Hi folks, welcome back to the Tabletop's Edge and the beginning of the July-August 1940 turn. Quick recap here before we dive into the turn. The initiative marker sits on the 0 box with the Axis having won initiative last turn, which means it's a slight edge to the Allies since they will win any ties. Both sides can ask for a reroll. And this is going to be a pretty important initiative roll. As far as reinforcements, they have been placed. There were a couple of notable additions to the construction pool. The Yamato and Musashi showed up. The Japanese also got some fast transports and some amphibs. The American transports started to show up. The Commonwealth received their first amphib. Moving on to the board state. France was able to reorganize a tremendous number of units. They had a very large influx of reinforcements this turn. Most of them were units that were shattered in the May-June turn. And you see they've got some reinforcements scattered here. Paris is in the front line. The Germans currently have 3 hexes they can attack it from, one of which is across a river though. So this hex here will be the key hex. If the French can hold on to that, the Germans are not going to be able to mount a really good attack on Paris. They can always take a sort of a low odds shot at it if they get desperate enough. But the Armée de l'Air received some nice reinforcements there. They've got a frontline fighter that's as good as any the Germans have. The only issue is they're going to be still severely outnumbered in the air. The Italians didn't receive much in the way of reinforcements. They did get some ships into the construction pool. The Soviets received a few land reinforcements here, which they will use to start building this line in anticipation of Germany coming east at some point, hopefully not for another couple of years. They probably will take control of the Baltic states here in the very near future as well. Moving over to Asia, the Chinese had a pretty good turn of reinforcements. Some communist cavalry showed up. They got a very nice motorized unit, and they got another air unit back in the game. So the Japanese added some Zeros, which have an outstanding range, and they upgraded some carrier planes. They are still in a position here, having made a gap in the Chinese lines, to try to exploit that here in July, August. But it's really all going to come down to the weather. And to start off first, we're going to roll some initiative with the red die being the Axis die and the green die the Allied die. Let's see who has the opportunity to strike first this turn. And with a 2 and a 2, tie goes to the Allies. The Axis, however, are going to request a reroll, which is going to slide that over to the Allied +1 box. We'll see if their gamble pays off here with this second roll. Looks like a 9, excellent roll. Unfortunately, the Allies rolled a 10, so it did not. The Allies win the initiative, and considering the situation here in France, the Allies are going to choose to go first. So onwards with the first Allied impulse. I just want to back up for a second and take another look at the second initiative roll, that reroll that the Axis requested. I had read the dice backwards. The result will be the same, as you'll see, but I wanted to clear this up so it wasn't confusing. The Axis die I am treating as the red die, and the Allied die will be the green die. That's the way we've been kind of playing it over the last several turns. So when I said the Axis rolled a 9, in fact, the Axis did roll a 10. However, because the reroll shifted the initiative marker into the +1 Allied box, that 9 becomes a 10 as well. And the Axis won initiative last turn, so ties do go to the Allies, so they will in fact go first. I just wanted to clear that up in case I may have caused any inadvertent confusion. So now on to the weather roll and the first impulse. Before we get started with the Allies, we've got to determine the weather for this turn. The roll for July-August, it is a 1. Might be a little hard to read with glare there. A 1 on the weather chart is going to give us, in July-August, it's going to be fine weather everywhere. So fine weather, good news for the attackers, maybe not so good news for the Chinese and the French. All right, the Allies have no declarations of war. They have their hands full as it is with the Germans in France right now. So we'll move on to choosing the action types. The two allied neutrals, the United States and Soviet Union, will be doing combined actions, while the French and Chinese will be doing land actions, and the Commonwealth, anticipating a declaration of war from the Italians at any moment, are going to choose a naval action so they can sortie the fleet and try to cover their convoy lines. So I will go ahead and deploy the Royal Navy, and we'll pick back up once we've got the ships at sea and see where things stand there. I've gone ahead and run through the entire remainder of the Allied First Impulse, and the Royal Navy, as you can see, has sortied its fleets pretty much everywhere. They are anticipating an Italian declaration of war in the very near future, if not the next impulse, then perhaps by the end of this turn. There are some reinforcements here, including Wavell heading to North Africa and the Middle East. They've got Force H deployed to the Western Mediterranean, some submarines patrolling off the Italian coast. The Med Fleet is in the Eastern Mediterranean, and they have a fairly heavy presence here in the Red Sea. They also have ABDA here in the Arabian Ocean, again, anticipating any potential Italian entry into the war. I want to make sure that the Red Sea flotilla cannot cause that much havoc. Looking further east into China, Chiang has withdrawn from the plains here to the northwest, and they've begun moving some units down from Chongqing to try to reestablish their line, which they've done. It's a little thin, and all of these units are currently inverted. So if the Japanese can mount any kind of attack this turn before they can be reorganized, which won't be until the end of the turn, they'll have a little easier time of it with those attacks. So the Chinese are hoping for a quick turn and that the line here can still hold. Now, the biggest impact of the Allies' winning initiative is actually in France. That allowed them to do a land move and really sort of solidify their defensive position here around Paris. They've just about closed up the gap in their lines here in the south. They've managed to get two headquarters within supporting distance of Paris there. The Air Force received some very nice frontline fighters. Everything is in position now, just awaiting the German onslaught. And hopefully they've been able to make the German attack on Paris as difficult as it can. So that's where things stand here at the end of the first Allied impulse. Actually, before we go, the USSR, again, has just been kind of trying to fill in and start building up her defensive line to the west here. The one thing of note that they did do is they did finally decide to take control of the Baltic states here. So there will be a U.S. entry effect for that we'll go ahead and roll for right now, and then that's going to wrap up the Allied first impulse. Now, the U.S. entry effect for USSR controls the Nazi-Soviet pact areas is a -4, and it affects Germany, Italy. So if a 4 or less is rolled, that will take 1 chit out of the entry pool. It is an 8, so there is no impact on U.S. entry for the Soviets moving into the Baltic states. As you know, it's been just about 3 months since I last uploaded a video in this playthrough series, and I've been concentrating on the tutorial videos in the meantime, as I really want to help the players out there that are just getting into the game or approaching the game. I've had a lot of requests, specific requests for help, and it seems like the tutorials are doing what I was hoping they would do. So I've been focusing on those more than the playthrough. This playthrough, as a matter of fact, was really kind of originally conceived as a supplement to the tutorial series, primarily to let those new players to the game kind of see how the rules work in an actual game situation and get a feel for how the game plays out. The more detailed format that some of you asked for has also turned out to be quite popular, and I'm grateful for your kind comments on it. I'm glad folks are enjoying this, and I definitely want to continue this for you guys. However, I've run into the point where I'm going to need the table space for some other projects coming up. Now, I had hoped to get all the way through the end of the July-August 1940 turn before being able to wrap this up, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen, especially since I'm trying to make a push here to finish up the tutorial series over the next couple of weeks. Do not fear, though. As I take the game down, I am preserving it using the extremely wonderful Vassal module that is available for folks that buy the game. They send you a link that's included with the price. So my intention is, as I tear this down, I will be recording the board state as it is, and at some point in the future, when I have the time to get this back out on the table and leave it up, I will pick up right where we're leaving off, right here at the end of the Allied First Impulse of July-August 1940, the beginning of the Axis Impulse number 2. So never fear, the game is not dead, but it is going on a bit of an indefinite hiatus after this video, and it may be several months. So I don't anticipate being able to get this back out again until probably late this year, or maybe even into next year in 2022. But never fear, there's still going to be a lot of World in Flames content on the channel, in addition to the tutorial series and this. I'll have some videos probably discussing various aspects of the game, maybe providing some hints or tips for play, even maybe strategy discussions, that kind of stuff. A lot of it depends on things that you guys out there that are watching are interested in, and you know, feel free to give me some suggestions of what you'd like to see as far as WIF-related content. Now, the channel, though, is much more than just a World in Flames only channel. Obviously, it's a fantastic game, and we're going to dedicate a lot of resources to it, moving forward. But there's a whole big wargaming hobby out there, so we're going to start to include some more content dealing with other games, and that's going to include stuff like reviews, playthroughs, just general commentary on the state of the hobby, if you will. So apologize for those of you that were really enjoying this and following this. It's going to be a bit of a long break, but I wanted to be kind of upfront with you about that and explain kind of what's going on now, and know that the game will continue. It's just going to be down the road a ways. So again, I thank you all for watching this far. Again, if you're watching the tutorial series, that will continue until we get that completely wrapped up. Again, the time frame is shooting for the end of the month, and then we'll be maybe starting to touch on some of the other great games out there in the hobby. So thanks for watching today, and we'll see you next time.